This was something that is widely known that this was in development. There was pictures of it like in Nintendo Power and other magazines, but it was never actually like seen by someone with their own eyes. So the Nintendo PlayStation prototype was found in kind of a surprising way.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say there was 200 of them made, which is not supposedly 200 of them produced.
And I'll get into that later.
And when the partnership between Sony and Nintendo broke down somewhere around CES 92, because I believe it was discussed at CES 91.
It was supposed to be a CD-ROM add-on.
Yeah.
Originally, they're going to do a CD-ROM add-on for the Super Nintendo, and then this was going to be the PlayStation version. Was just going to be like an all-in-one Super Nintendo and PlayStation full CD-ROM system.
So yeah, it was found because the guy who found it, his father was a maintenance man for a company.
Dan Diebold found it.
That was headed by a guy who was working for, I believe, Sony in their division at the time that was happening.
His father was a maintenance worker.
Oh, his father was the maintenance worker. Right.
At Advanta Corporation in the 2000s. The president of that company was Olaf Olafsson, who was the former CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So somehow that came into his father's hands from Olaf.
They were instructed to destroy it all when the company that his father worked for went bankrupt. But according to Dan, his dad never got rid of anything and was loath to throw things out. Mm-hmm. So when he found one in a box, he took it home and stuck it in the attic. And that's the story as to how at least one of these has been saved.
So this was originally it was posted on Reddit with pictures. People didn't believe him. So Dan then did a YouTube video. It's about 2 minutes long.
I saw that.
If it's a hoax, it's a damn freaking good hoax. We'll just say that.
It looks like a legitimate console to me.
Yeah, it'd be very hard. I can't imagine people go, oh, you could 3D print that. Not really. You can't.
No,
something like that. No, the amount of money to hoax something like that. We're talking even when the Super Nintendo had yellowing on it. The Super Nintendo portion.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay. Fake that.
You're going pretty far to yellow the console.
Pretty good fake. So it's interesting because there's also one controller, and we'll get into it. The controller had PlayStation on the front,
but Nintendo on the back
because it was just the mold.
Yeah.
But the console just had Sony and PlayStation on it. So originally people were like, oh, this is fake because the pictures we've seen had different fonts. But other people were like, oh no, we've seen pictures with this font as well. This more plainer font, which ended up closer to being the actual PlayStation system font for their logo. It's interesting, it has a tray in the front. It has the controller ports. It's a combo system. It looks like it. So, being that there was no AC adapter, Dan in the video said he was afraid of turning on and frying it, which is good. You probably want to start with as low amp and wattage, and volts as possible, and sort of work your way up until it turns on, just in case.
Well, I believe there is danger in plugging in something that's too low on one of those. But anyways, what he said he's going to do is he's going to take it back home because he went to go see his parents. His dad, he got the system. He's going to take it back to his friend who works at a video game store, and they're going to find an appropriate AC adapter for it.
Yeah,
of course.
You can go to the one thing Radio Shack, if they're still in business, still sells. They sell like universals with different voltages.
Yeah, they have everything.
That's how I got my one for my Turbo Duo from
Sure.
Radio Shack. So they'll find it. What was interesting though was that, unfortunately, Dan didn't have a Super Nintendo where you can take out the freaking tabs and try whatever was on that cartridge that came with it. Even if it was just a logo saying, Sony PlayStation on it and Super Nintendo, that'd be insane to see that.
These are some of the things, and I do believe it's real. I want to believe it's real, but there's a couple things that make me
just cautious.
One is you couldn't find a Super Nintendo that you could modify just to test that out, really? You couldn't? You don't know anyone with one? 2, it's been stated that he said there's a CD for it. I haven't seen a single picture of the CD. How does he know there's a CD in the system?
So those are 2 things that might lead you to believe, okay, this could be weird.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like the build itself looks so legitimately like a combo system that could have come out in the 90s that I do want to believe that it's real, and I am leaning towards thinking it's real. But yeah, the lack of no, you don't know anyone with a Super Nintendo, and the lack of a picture of a CD that you say that exists. Are you either just assuming there's one in there, or have you not bothered to take a picture of it?
So yeah, Nintendo PlayStation Super Disc was, I guess, going to be somewhat the name of the console. I spoke to my friend Super Collector Steve Lynn, who is obviously interested in stuff like this,
of course,
video game history. And talking to him, he's like, "Yeah, it seems legit." There's no reason now. And even if you look on the back of the console of the
oh.
ports are not exactly the same, but it's somewhat similar to how the PS1 ended up being.
Yeah,
How the ports are.
But
laid
there's
out.
still a Nintendo style AV on the back of it, and there's also a early PlayStation style generic AV on the back of it as well.
Which
to
was the
use as
original-
you could use as a CD player.
Which how the original PlayStation
Right.
had before they got rid of it, the AV
Exactly.
composite.
So, yeah, I do think there's a lot of things pointing this in the favor of real. I'm wondering why certain steps haven't already been taken.
Well, he's probably not a video game guy. He's probably just got this like, oh, this is
I think he actually says that in his YouTube
Yeah,
video,
so,
which
I
is fine.
it's fine. Yeah. So this is going to end up in someone's hands for a lot of money. At this point, it's just how much money.
A lot. So much. So much money.
Talking to Steve, he said there. I didn't realize this, probably more so in Japan, that there are like Sony collectors, people that collect Sony merchandise and things. So for them, this is you're gonna have, this is the rare item. Where I spoke about it on Retro Game Roadshows before live, where when you get a crossover item, it either means that you're gonna have less interest because it's two different things together, like say a signed Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball. Baseball collectors might be like, eh. But in this case, it's technology, Sony, Nintendo, PlayStation. This is like this is the granddaddy. This is the holy grail. I hate saying that, the holy grail of video game hardware, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You talk about those systems that never came out, like all the Atari system, like the Cosmos. And you had like
That only existed ever in a wood mock-up.
the Sega Neptune, stuff like that. But this is something that I think this interests people a lot more.
Well, I mean, you have two companies that are generally not known for working with anyone, especially Nintendo. And this is their one clash right here.
Also talking to Steve about why you can always why Nintendo sort of got cold feet and backed out of this deal, then decided to say, oh, we're gonna do this partnership with like Philips, instead.
Well, from what I heard, it was because Sony wanted basically entire control over the system. They would allow them to take control over the cartridge portion of it, but Sony was going to run everything on the CD end of it and basically run the console end of it too.
Being that the CD-ROM technology at this point, especially for gaming, was still sort of fresh, early 90s, it sounded like Sony at least wanted some sort of royalty for the CD-ROM games. So meaning that every game that Nintendo sold, you'd have to pay Sony.
Right.
The same way like Blu-ray had to be licensed out to Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Like Blu-rays is a technology that Sony owns.
Yes.
So they wanted to control the media. Sounds familiar with your shitty memory sticks, Sony, that were terrible. So Nintendo got cold feet maybe because of that, but also I think once Nintendo sees this system, they're like, wow, this is not a Nintendo system. There's no Nintendo branding on this prototype anywhere.
Right.
We're losing control. We're losing control of our system.
Nintendo is not a company that wants to lose control of anything that they're involved in. Especially not at that time.
Oh, sure. Sony PlayStation, it's a Super Famicom controller, but it says Sony PlayStation on it, which is interesting. I think just faking that alone would cost a ton of money. That's not a sticker. You look at that. That was made specially. You know what I mean? So, if it's a hoax, it's a damn good hoax. And so I guess we're going to see where it ends up. It belongs in a museum, which it does.
It does.
But let's see if it works. Let's see what's on that purported CD. Let's see what's on that freaking cartridge.
Yeah, even if it's just freaking demo logos, I want to see them. I just want to see them.
We want to see them.
That's it.
I want to play it. I want to see it.